I'm feeling so unstoppable, beating the impossible. Being number one ain't nothing new. Get up off the tracks, it's that choo-choo. Yeah, that J-train coming through. I said that choo-choo. Yeah, that J-train coming through. You know that choo-choo. Yeah, that J-train coming through. It's that J-train coming through. That J-train coming through. But I'm coming for it all. Yeah, me and brother Vinny, I'm a top-notch warrior.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boys, Justin J. Train Gonzalez, alongside none other than my baby brother, Vinny Headlock Gonzalez.
Woo!
We got a special guest here on the Blood, Sweat, and Banter podcast. Good friend of ours, very well-known, world-renowned, I guess I'm going to say writer, reporter, journalist, among several other things that we're going to touch base on here soon. Mr. Nolan King, man, thanks for coming, man. We are excited to have you. I mean, shoot, Vin, we've known you for a long time. We followed you, but I think we first touched base back in Hawaii, maybe.
Yeah, I think around right before your Bellator signing, I think I had interviewed you for the first time. We had done for On the Doorstep for MMAJunkie, which was like 5 prospects that will sign with a big promotion. So I think it was right before your title fight that ended up being the last one before you went on to Bellator. So it's been a bit, and then we met over in Hawaii, which was cool. I was over there one of 2 times that I've ever been like in an MMA locker room on fight night. So we were up in that little weird, that really old stadium with the weird crammed like locker room upstairs.
It's a cool stadium. I heard that some people out there were saying that they're going to tear it down and maybe renovate it for future stuff. I don't know if it ever happened. I never looked into it after we were done there, but hey, man, there's a lot worse places than to fight than Honolulu, Hawaii. I definitely had a blast out there. I got to go out there twice. Vinny, you got to go out there with us.
Yeah, because I was in his corner for that one. Then I was like, wait, no, hey, man, how's it going? We got that pic that I put up on the Instagram. So that was cool, dude. And then ever since then, I was like, I'll just drop Nolan a line, be like, you think this fight's going to fall through? And he'll just be like, nah, man, it's good. It's good. So
yeah, no, it's been cool, man. Hawaii was awesome. Yeah, I still think about like, if I wonder just with, we were talking a little bit before I jumped on here, just about how like the landscape's changing and, a lot of the events, obviously now there's kind of the UFC and there's some PFL events and then that's kind of it. But it'll be interesting to see if I ever kind of do something cool like that again. Like I don't know if I'll ever end up in Hawaii, at least for an event again. So that was a unique feel, like that old arena, the fact that it felt like, I don't know, it just felt like the energy was like right on top of the fighters, right? And yeah, that was really special. I don't think there'll ever be events like that again. The UFC doesn't seem like they want to go there. So very cool though. Very, very fun night.
Well, and the reason why you were out there in the first place, I remember you did a piece on Yancy Madero. So you kind of like followed him and kind of checked him out. So like, what do you normally get those kind of stories where you get to like really shadow somebody, or is it just a lot of like, hey, fight announcements and quick recaps of shows?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much like, there's kind of 2 categories of stuff that I do. One is just daily maintenance of the site where, there's stuff that we have to do, whether it's, we have our video guy, Kenny Hathaway, out in Vegas. He'll do the media days, right? So then us writers will have to take the interviews that he did and do a little story on each one of them. So there's certain things that like have to get done every day at Junkie, but then pretty much everything else I have creative control over. So with that, that one specifically, I had been out in San Jose for Bellator. And so they were like, all right, well, you're already out there for the other Bellator. Why don't, you want to just do the Hawaii one too? But there was a little gap that we had. Me and one of my editors, Matt Erickson, were working those shows. So, they said like, rather than fly you, to San Jose, then back and then into Hawaii, like, why don't you guys just either stay in San Jose a few extra days or stay in Hawaii? So we were like, all right, that's pretty easy. Pick between those 2. And so we went out there and we were trying to think of something like impromptu to do that was cool, being somewhere like that we don't usually go. So at that point in time, like, I knew, I think Yancy was with Jason House, management wise, and they're pretty good about PR and, setting up interviews. So I said, hey, like if he's around, like if I did like a longer kind of interview thing with him about his story. Like he might be an interesting guy to feature because he had just campaigned to get back to to get to Bellator, to get another opportunity after his UFC cut, and they'd signed him to a 1-fight deal. So that was set up. They were like, oh yeah, here's Yancey's number. Like, so I texted him and he was just like, why don't you come to my gym? Like, I'll show you around. So he took us, like, it went from like, hey, we'll do like a longer story on this guy's like bio to like kind of almost in his like wheelhouse of just like, he took us to the beach. He took us to the house his parents grew up, or he grew up with his parents. So we went all around with him, and then Bellator was super easy to work with and very thankful, I think, at times that people would cover them when they wouldn't get as much coverage as the UFC. So they were like, yeah, anything you guys need for this, like access, like whatever. So that's how I ended up in a locker room while you were warming up. Some talk about out of place, but that was a cool experience, man. That's kind of how that came together.
My experience with Yancey's a bad dude and he's a cool dude, man. That guy's like, instantly, like, he talked to me like he knew me for years, and I was just sitting there like, dang, dude, you're the man. Like, we just clicked right away. He's a cool cat, so I was happy to see him fight and be able to fight on the same card with him. You got to chalk it up with him for a while too, right?
Yeah, man, because it was just like, hey, dude, like, what's it like fighting out here? And he's like, oh, it's home, man. I never get to fight at home, so this was super cool. And he's like, that's your brother? Oh, man, family, that's what it's all about, man. It's just like, oh my gosh, this guy's so cool. It's like, because I mean, I'm not on to the level as Justin is. I probably never will be. So whenever I get to brush shoulders with somebody that's, been to the big show and stuff, I'm just like, play it cool, man. Play it cool. And then you go to the bathroom and you're taking a piss next to Nate Diaz and you're just like, I can't play it
cool. Stage fright?
Hey man, just let it out, bro. Just pee. And I was like, Nate Diaz just told me to let it go. Oh man. But so for you, do you still, even to this day, like I think probably for you, it's, doing it with fighters, you're kind of like, I get it, been there, done that. So is there somebody that you're like, if you were to ever interview them, you're going to be like, all right, man, keep it cool,
Yeah, I think some of like the more like luminary guys that were in their heyday when I was starting to get into the sport, like the Anderson Silvas, like the GSP. Like I remember when I first started, it was like every fighter I talked to, I was a little bit nervous. And then I think it went to like, when I joined Junkie, and then it was like, oh, you're talking to these guys one-on-one, and then maybe you'll be on camera. Like there were different levels of like, of new experiences that I had to go through that were maybe a little bit more stressful than the previous one, right? Or nerve-wracking. But I think for me, like the last one I can remember was Fedor, right? Talking to him at Bellator, doing like a brief 5-minute one-on-one thing where it was, they had to like beg him to do it. And then he was like, fine, I'll do it for 5 minutes. And, just having him look at you while you're talking, like that was the last like one-on-one thing where I was like kind of a little nervous. But really, no, I mean, over time, it's just the more reps that you do. Like, there was a period of time where maybe I was a little more nervous about like standing up in the press conference at the UFC. And like, even though those questions are a little more like, I don't know, it's more kind of for the fans than maybe like an in-depth interview would be. I think just still like, you're standing up there with 1,000 people watching you and a microphone and you can't really hear because there's an echo going on and Dana White's looking at, you know what I mean? So I think all of it was just about, talk about like visualization and stuff, like I'm sure athletes go through. This is nothing compared to that, but like just being in that setting and doing it a few times, like that, you kind of don't think about it, or you think about it less and less as you go. And I think that's the same way with dealing with these athletes, but there's probably still a few that would get me like a little more, get the adrenaline going a little bit more. Right.
Dude, even me and Vin, I'm like, we run into some guys and I try not to put people on that level. Just a rule of mine is that like, if you want to be on that level, how can you put somebody else on that, like above you? You don't want to like too much, but shoot, there's some guys I ran into that I was like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, Fedor was definitely one. Nate, doing stuff with Nate has been similar to that at times. Just kind of those bigger name guys where you're like, oh shit, this is look who I'm talking to right now. It's kind of a little
legit stars. It's badass though.
Yeah, legends. And it'll be funny too. The sport is so new still, relatively, right? That I wonder, like 40 years from now, it'll be like, oh, I interviewed Fedor in the middle of a pandemic, or I interviewed Nate here. It's just it'll be interesting to see how people reflect on like that first, because obviously there's the Dan Severance, Don Fries and stuff that seem, you know, forever, that laid the groundwork, but that first and second generation of like world renowned superstars, it'll be interesting to see, like, will this come across like I talked to Babe Ruth or like Honus Wagner or something in baseball? You know, it's interesting, man.
Absolutely. Well, shoot, let's touch base. All right, Nolan. So let's go backtrack a little bit. You went to school, you graduated from University of New Hampshire, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
What'd you graduate with there? Very
Biomedical
different.
science degree. So I went from doing health stuff to
well, it's just
watching
interesting.
people beat
We'll
each
touch
other up in
base
the
on
caves.
that
Yep.
because doing a little bit of research, you were an EMT at one point, right?
I was, yeah. In college, I kind of did that part time. You know, if I had gone to grad school, I would need hours dealing with patients, so that was kind of my way to do that.
I mean, okay, so from EMT to journalist, that's a far different career choice. Like, what got you into journalism? Were you a fan of MMA? I mean, obviously I've seen two. Is that like, I mean, let's just touch base, I guess. USA Today, MMA Today. You used to work for Flow Sports for a while, right? A couple years, I think. I mean, MMAJunkie, obviously huge. And I mean, two-time MMA award journalist nominee, correct? So I'm just curious, like, man, when what was the was there a passion? Were you just a fan of MMA? Were you kind of I mean, I don't know. Give us the scoop, man. What was the change?
Yeah, it was a weird story, man. I mean, again, like it's just telling people that, you know, I used to do this and now I used to do that and now I do this. It's definitely strange, but basically like I was a bored college kid that didn't really like the path that I was going down. Not that it was bad or anything, but it just wasn't, I never knew what I wanted to do with my career. You know, they make you pick a major. I just kind of picked, I was like, I was always good at science, so I'll go down here. It's a little more hands-on and sitting at a desk. And yeah, I was just a big fan. And I think with MMA, that was never part of like, I had no social outlet when it came to MMA. Like I have a lot, you know, I had a bunch of friends. We love sports, but like none of them were into MMA. None of them were into the UFC. Specifically here in New England, it would, you know, it had, when I first started watching it, they had never come here. Like they would come then when they started to come, they came very infrequently. So it was like a whole different world to me. Right. So I started a Twitter account one day just to kind of be able to interact with people. Like I didn't even use my name. I just used an alias, you know, kind of thing. And that was what my handle was, MMA King. So that was the name of it. And so, yeah, and there we go. Shameless plug. But yeah, just kind of created that account, started to kind of do like what Big Marcel does now with like the fight bookings and stuff, just kind of put them all in one place. Cause even back then, like now it's, you know, you see a fight comes out and like 900 accounts tweet it. Back then it was not like that. It was just, you know, you might see, I remember the UFC would just update their website sometimes, and that's how you'd find out what the fights were. Like there'd be nobody would even post about what matchups were added where. So started doing that for a while. And then like I started to have people reach out to me like, hey, like, you know, you didn't post about this fight or that fight. And it was, you know, somebody's friend or somebody in somebody's camp or whatever. And so I just kind of built, you know, connections that way. I think at that point in time, the Twitter sphere of MMA was a little bit more of a tight knit group with, you know, people for the most part using real identities. There weren't like necessarily trolls and things like that. And then I had a couple, you know, blog sort of sites, MMA Today, reach out, say, hey, do you want to write for us? Like just for fun, kind of as a hobby thing, good experience. So I eventually did that, did really well with them. Flow Combat reached out and was like, hey, we'll pay you, you know, do whatever, 5-10 stories a month and we'll pay you this amount. Did that for a while and then jumped on board with Tapology, which is kind of its own thing. And I'm still with them, been with them for 7 years. But it helped kind of support my, you know, hobby a little bit. And then, yeah, right around the time that I was graduating from college, I got a major site reached out to me, was kind of interested, and they ended up going in a different direction. So I'm like, well, I'm on the tip of there, you know, I'm right there. So for that next year after college, between graduation and when I got hired at MMAJunkie, I did the EMT thing still. I worked at, my uncle has a business here in Massachusetts that I kind of helped out at. And then I did the writing stuff on the side and pocketed a little bit of cash as well. So kind of held out a little bit. And eventually it came to fruition where, you know, Junkie came, got a full-time offer
Which you're doing a
with
great
them and
job. We
haven't
love,
looked
I
back
mean,
since.
you're always putting out some good content, always some interesting people. We're fans, obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously, we wouldn't have had you on if we weren't. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
curious, you know, you've probably met, like we've already touched base on it, of like so many superstars. I mean, wide variety of, like, whenever I was coming up and others coming up, man, is it kind of hard to keep it? I'm sure you've created many friendships along the way with these guys that you probably constantly see over time. Is it hard not to be biased and give them a little extra love or attention, or like, I mean, they're getting ready for a fight. Is it hard to keep it professional, but also like personal? How do you separate that?
Yeah, it is an interesting line, right? And I think for me at least, always, I think being very clear to people that like what my job is and what my role is in this industry, right? Like I think I've seen from other people, you know, make the mistake of leaning into maybe the friendship or, you know, kind of not misleading people, but like leaving out a key part of this whole thing, right? Which is like, this is my job, I'm covering you for this. Like, and I think specifically when it's gotten into some areas where maybe there's tougher conversations that I'm having with people, whether it's about legal stuff or drug testing stuff or whatever, like I really try to lay out like what my job is. You know, this is I'm a reporter, I do this is what I'm trying to figure out. You know, I'm trying to give you the opportunity to do this. So I don't know. I think being really clear with people. I think never making somebody feel like, I think there's this sometimes, I don't know if necessarily in MMA, but like in the space of sports reporting where it's almost like people doing favors for each other. Like, well, I did this for you, so the reporter has to do that. Like, I think I can sense it when it comes to like NFL coverage and NHL coverage. I see it. Like, I see things being posted that I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So I think maybe not like playing that game ever, never feeling like you're owed something, right? So it's kind of hard for somebody to turn around and say, well, you asked me for this and now you won't do that. Like, so I don't know. It's been, I think I've done a good job of like being very professional, being very friendly, but also not going like too far down the rabbit hole where I end up not digging a grave that I can't get out of.
That you can't pull yourself back out of, for sure. I mean, and that's probably a hard thing too, is because like, I'm sure what a lot of people want to hear is the dirt, you know, they want to hear the bad stuff behind. And it's like, as a reporter, you kind of, it's almost like your job is to kind of dig into that. But I don't know, man. There's a fine line of where do you go too far? And
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And I think I've never went to school for this. So on one hand, I say like, oh, maybe I'm not doing it properly. Maybe I should be more of a pain in the ass. But I think like I've never compromised my integrity or what I'm supposed to be reporting on. Um, I don't feel that I ever have in any way that has done a disservice to what I'm putting out. Like when it's time to report stuff, I think I've done it the right way. I've never cut corners or kind of turned an eye when there's something going on. Like I think being direct with people is a big part of it too. Like I think sometimes, and it sucks. Like sometimes I talk about, feeling uncomfortable in conversations, right? There might be ways to skirt around it or kind of be softer on it. But I think a lot of times if that can kind of
for
come
sure,
across as
absolutely.
sneaky too. So I think just being direct with people, trying to do things professionally, have them understand what your job is. It's been good, man. I at times I kind of hate some of the conversations, but for the most part, I think everybody's been pretty pleasant, and I've, like you said, there's been a lot of really great working relationships that I've built. See, I was pretty basic on the EMT ladder, so there were a lot of things that I couldn't do, which I'm kind of happy with. Like it's so funny, when I first started working on the ambulance, I had like a big fear of needles, right? So being around needles all the time, it actually like desensitized me a bit, just constantly seeing people get their blood drawn and stuff. But there was a lot of procedures I couldn't do. You'd have to be like an advanced level to do that. I was just kind of a basic level. So, but I think in general, it's kind of given me like a good knowledge of like the body and stuff. I think when I got into doing EMT, I thought, oh, it's going to be like kind of easy and like whatever. But actually like trying to study for that exam was actually pretty difficult. It's pretty comprehensive and there's a lot of different moving parts. So I think just having like a basic understanding of the whole thing. Sometimes when we've had different injuries come up, like I'm like, oh, I kind of remember this or that. So, and then there's other times where I'm like, I don't even remember what like a cell is at this point, So, yeah, no, it's been funny, man. There has been certainly some crossover.
I guess just touching base on the EMT thing, I started thinking about this. Like, okay, so my wife is a nurse, and she used to work in trauma centers where some pretty crazy stuff would go down. Now she's in a surgery center, which is a little more planned, controlled. But I was like, as an EMT, you're probably, I mean, you're not in a controlled environment, at least until you get them to the hospital. You've probably seen some shit, I would assume.
Yeah, it was honestly like I feel like I got away like pretty unscathed, which was nice. Because like again, it was not while I was doing it, it was kind of the next step of what I had to do to get where I wanted to be, right? And so
Uh,
Mhm.
at the time, I remember at times being like, "Oh, like I really hope I don't go today and see something like awful." Which again, I never, thank God, I never saw something that was like
Probably
super
pretty lucky.
traumatizing or anything. But my first shift that yeah, my first shift. I mean, we were on a college campus, so there was a lot of like college nonsense that
Oh,
went
I've been
on. There
there.
was a lot of, kind of nursing homes that were around the outside. So there was a lot of stuff that was a little maybe run of the mill, maintenancey sort of things, but we went through this training period for 6 months when you first get brought on at that station up there in New Hampshire. And so went through that. And then they're like, okay, like, now you can work a regular shift by yourself. You don't have to be like the extra guy that's there, like the trainee. And like, so the first day I go, I have my new shirt, they have you wear different color shirts. So it was the first shift I got to wear the red shirt. I remember going up there and I think I was at my parents' house and me being like, oh, like, I said something about being nervous. My mom was like, oh, don't worry. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Get up there early, 20 minutes early, roll in. Like, the thing sounds, the only other guys that's working there is the guy that trained me. And it was like a code, and he's like, oh my God, like this guy's first shift and it's just me and him. And, somebody coded like 15 minutes away or whatever. So that was kind of a rough entry into the whole thing. But yeah, man, I was lucky in that I didn't see outside of a crazy first call and a couple other ones that were a little wacky and maybe some of them more like not like gruesome, but like emotionally like tough calls. I luckily like walked away not being not having anything lingering in my brain, which is good.
So
Yeah.
respect, man, because that's badass. And there's a lot of people who don't get it. Like they come out of there and like you said, the whole desensitizing thing to needles is like they almost get desensitized to probably like horrific.
Yeah, and it was like for me, I was never that. I have a lot of respect for people that do that line of work, but I think that was like a big difference. Where when I was in that position, I was like, I'm kind of not where I should be. You know what I mean? Like I think if I had experienced some of those more difficult calls, I don't, it would have been a lot tougher on me than other people. So a lot of respect for the
Oh,
people
for
in that
sure.
line of work because they certainly have they have a different a better mentality.
So
about
now,
the whole
like
thing
coming
than I could
back
ever have.
to journalism, getting you into the world of MMA, what was at least that you could recollect? You think the big story that you did, or the big posting, the big,
The breakthrough, maybe.
the one that really you think for yourself put you on the map, that separated you from a guy that just posts on Twitter to being a multiple journalist nominee?
Yeah, I think there were just a few, like, I'll just run it through quickly, but I think there was, the first thing I did when I was with Flow Combat, and again, there was little fight news that would come out here and there, and I think I started to gain attention just uh, slowly but surely through all those things. But there was a segment that I used to do for Flow Combat where I would take like things I was hearing in the industry and I'd put them in a list, and I called it Insider Scoop. So it was like 10 things, and you see it in other sports now. I think like the NFL does it. Some of the insiders will do it, where you kind of rumblings from around the league sort of thing. So I did that for a while, and like my boss Simon Samano right now has told me like that was the thing that kind of caught his attention about me, was some stuff about different fights that were in the works or locations that were happening or people getting released from their contracts and being free agents. Like that was kind of the first thing. And then
Yeah.
there've been other things along the way, like Cain Velasquez covering his court case, I think has given me a new audience. I think that was right before the first nomination that I got. So I think that was a big part of it. And there's been other ones, like I think UFC 279 was, if I'm talking about like social media following, I think was a pretty monumental day for me. With all the craziness, that was the one where like Diaz ended up fighting Tony Ferguson,
Oh,
and like
yeah.
Hamzat fought Holland. There was this whole switcheroonie that went on in Weigh-ins Day. So I think my just kind of being plugged into a lot of the different camps there and what was going on, I think just being on top of that was one too. That was one of the craziest days that I've been a part of covering the sport. And I think that just having to have the right people in the equation had helped me be able to cover it the best that I could. So those were kind of some of the more monumental things for me that I
And
think
I guess
turn different
so.
corners in my
Now
career.
with that, now like saying, hey, I'm running with the big dogs. Everyone knows Nolan King's here to stay. Um, like how does your relationship with other journalists work? Because it is a very like competitive market where you want to beat somebody to post that somebody fell through on a fight or somebody failed a drug test, like, and you got the really really big dogs like Helwani and Okamoto and stuff, but like, so when in that sphere of MMA journalism, how do you guys like, is it kind of like friendly camaraderie where it's like, yo dude, that was a good story you put, or hey, you beat me to the punch on that one, or is it like, man, I just do not like that guy?
No, it's super friendly. And the thing was when I took the jump from Flow Combat to MMAJunkie, I didn't know anybody. Like I covered, I think like one UFC event. I'd done a couple Bellators at Mohegan. That was pretty much it. I really had no personal relationships with anybody except for Hunter Homostek, who was the guy running Flow Combat at the time. And maybe, some cordial sort of passing comments on social media with some of the other reporters, but I didn't really know anybody. But I think the most pleasant development for me has been the fact that in terms of the people actually in the industry, like everybody's been pretty friendly. Like we will get, bust each other's balls sometimes about the news stuff. The thing that's made it a little more difficult, I think, recently is like the way social media is now. There seems to be a lot more, not necessarily from like the people that are at Junkie or MMA Fighting or ESPN or Uncrowned now, but like just sometimes there'll be accounts that will tweet things that will be like half truths or kind of truths or like rumblings, and it's not like super verified. And believe me, I'm not trying to be a hypocrite. I got this all started for me through Twitter and reporting and things like that. I'm very much a fan of, there's a handful of guys right now that are doing it like throwback, they get both sources, two sources, they put out the fight when it's not just like somebody got mentioned to them or whatever, and they take accountability if they get something wrong. But there's also a whole other wave of accounts that will just either throw shit at the wall and hope that it sticks, or they'll start to hear something that's kind of maybe being talked about and they'll just post about it to try to be first. So in the industry, very cool. I think the biggest thing that's difficult for us to deal with though is the fact that social media kind of promotes being first over being right
and
these
it's
days.
like, I don't know, you see a lot of clickbait where it's like nonsense that's like nothing, just trying to get clicks or views and stuff. It's like, dude.
I mean, there's accounts now that will purposely just post fake fights to get people retweet them or whatever, and then the next time they do it, they'll be at the top of the algorithm because their tweet did so well last time. So
Well,
it's
it's
tough,
so
but it's
annoying
kind of the world
because
we
I'll
live in.
be, scrolling through Instagram and I'll just be Jones Aspinall set up for. I'm like, yes, finally. And then it's like, no, Jones is still not fighting. I'm just like, dude, what the? So I only get my news from Nolan King. He's the only person I trust at this point to give me authentic fight news. I mean, Marcel is on top of it too, but no one's the one I talk to. So I'm just.
Yeah, Marcel's great, man. It's so funny. We've known each other. Like I remember probably when we first started out on Twitter, like he probably had less than 100 followers and I had less than 100, and we were just talking stuff about fights. So I've known him for a long time. It's been crazy to see, him, Farah Hanoun, who works with us now. Like we were the three that would always post about the different bookings, right? And so, now I've kind of gravitated more towards the writing stuff. Marcel's just like, he's the best because he does it the right way. And like Twitter loves him, like the algorithm loves him because he's consistent. He's got the graphics. He's got a lot of interaction. So like, there's an example of a guy that has done it the right way and has also benefited from the way social media is. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about him. He's the man.
I've had some questions that I was thinking about whenever we Vinny linked up, say talk to you that we were gonna have you on, and I'm like, man, like outside of the EMT world and just the MMA world, you've seen some shit too. So I'm like, is there like, how do I want to say it? What do you think? I got a couple questions. What's your wildest story adventure that some fighter has probably put you on or made you jump through some hoops to try to, I mean, anything that like somebody from the outside who maybe just an avid fan would like to hear? I mean, I want to hear it because I'm sure man, this group of people that we're around, you see them from all over, some really cool, some a little standoffish, some from the rednecky place to the barrio to the Dagestan mountains, you know, all over everywhere. And you get them all together, you probably see some crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, for me, I luckily have not been, you know, have not been found myself in a foreign country and you know been where a bunch of fighters are in a bar fight or anything. But no, man. I mean, I'm trying to think of something that would really stick out to me. I mean, it's a great question. Um, as somebody that's traveled maybe a little bit less than some of my coworkers, I mean, if you ask, like, for example, John Morgan that question, who I worked with for 4 years, I'm sure he's got like probably legally all sorts of stories that he.
Probably
Um,
say, like,
no,
I'm not trying to get somebody arrested, but
he's yeah, yeah. I don't know, man, but it's just always been cool being around the fight scene. Like you know, there was one of those times that hits me. And it's not nothing like too crazy, but like I think it was after, you know, after Fedor fought Bader, and it was Fedor's retirement fight. Like going back to this, we were in like LA, like LAX airport area, which was like, oh, we're going to Los Angeles, cool. And then it's like, oh no, we're like in like Inglewood, in like a area that's got literally nothing except a Starbucks in the hotel. But just going back there after the fights and being like, there's probably, I don't know, 400 people in the lobby of just, you know, chilling, drinking. But it was like Dan Henderson, you know, Mark Coleman was there. And obviously he's not drinking, but like he was there hanging out. And so just being around like all those luminaries, just everybody, you know, Dan Henderson, just, I've never seen somebody be able to put down more beers in a short amount of time and still be standing. So he's a legend in multiple categories of life. But I wish I had a better answer for this, but I really don't. I think most of my experiences have been pretty good. It's made me, you know, meet some interesting people. Like when I was traveling out in Bellator, San Jose, got to. There was a photographer for Bellator, Will Fox. I don't know if Justin ever dealt with him, but he was great. He would do like shooting.
I dealt with Lucas a lot.
Will Fox,
Lucas is the man. I love that guy, dude. He's awesome.
Yeah, Will Fox was John Jones's photographer through his career, and so Bellator brought him on to do like more like portraity sort of stuff. Like when you guys were in the cage afterwards, he'd go in and take like some kind of more artsy sort of things. And they, you know, he's taken a lot of like, you can look him up on Instagram. He's great, Fox Identity. But we were out there. He was kind of my road dog when I used to travel to all these Bellators during the pandemic. We would hang out. There wasn't a lot of other media, and he had just been kind of hired there. So we'd hang out, and we were in San Jose one time, and he's like, oh, like, you know, he had shot for Steve-O's book or something. He was friends with him. So Steve-O was in town doing stand up. We got to, you know, he's like, oh, it's like maybe we, you know, I'll see if we can get us in or whatever. And so we go in, and it's like me, Will, Steve-O, and like his podcast partner Scott, and like we just hung out with him. All like he did 2 shows, so hung out with him a little before he went out, came back, hung out with us. Then he went back for his second show, and we left. But there's just been, I don't know, there's a lot of like weird little side journeys that I've been on. Right, I got on a plane to San Jose just thinking I was going to go cover fights, and then that happened. So you never know who you're going to meet. You know, I've connected with. I'm a huge Bruins fan. One of the guys on the Bruins right now is Jacob Lauko. I saw him in the Junkie comments years ago when he got drafted. And I remember being like, I reached out to him and said, hey, like, this is cool. I'm a big Bruins fan. You just got drafted. So we've bonded through the years, and he's made the team. He's a regular. He's played 3 or 4 seasons. So we've become friends through that. Like you just never, I think the connections that I've made through MMA are not just the, you know, hey, like the fighters, and you just never know. You meet so many interesting people from all walks of life. So I wish I could bring you on a story that I got kidnapped in Mexico or something, but it's been a lot more positive things than negative. And some of the relationships that I've built through the years have been really awesome.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's good for your well-being that like the cartel wasn't like, hey, you don't talk trash about Brandon Moreno, damn it. You know, but
yeah.
I think it's cool, man. Like you said, just people coming in through all walks of life. I mean, shoot, the other week I was down at high altitude and getting some sparring rounds in with Justin while he was down there, and it was just random day, just normal Friday afternoon. I'm getting ready to go shower, and we look over to the right, and Jamal Murray's just sitting on the mat hanging out with Usman, just kind of shooting the shit. And I'm just like, Jamal Murray comes to high altitude? What the heck is going? And then what was it? The next week, who came in, Just?
I think it was McKinnon from the Avalanche who I was like, dude,
oh,
yeah, some heavy hitters coming in here, dude. It's sweet.
It was like, damn, this is like, who needs to go to Hollywood? You got all the stars here at high altitude MMA. And it's
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I saw he was out there doing some training with
Yeah,
Royval
that's who he
recently
was
too. So he
with.
must be a big MMA
I mean,
guy.
there's always like
Yeah.
just different athletes. Like Brian Shaw was in there a good handful of times working with the heavyweights, and that was just really interesting because, like, man, you think of the heavyweights in MMA, they're not small human beings, dude. Those guys are ginormous, but you see them standing next to somebody like Brian Shaw, and you're like, damn, that guy is really huge. Like, that guy makes these guys look little.
Oh my gosh. And like Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, these guys like, and that just kind of have these weird little zeitgeist in MMA. It's like, what are you guys doing here? And it's like, and for us, we're like, we don't care. We're just happy to be a part of the journey and seeing them come out, you know? But oh my gosh. So, uh, okay. Nolan, going back to MMA and things that you've seen over time, like, has there been individual fights that you're like, I was in attendance for that have been your favorite fights, and then just overall, what have been your favorite fights as a fan that you've been able to go about? Because I think it's interesting for you as a journalist to look at some of these fights with a different scope, where you're like, man, I would love to write about this fight, versus as a just a fan of viewing pleasure, you're like, that fight
just wanna
was
see it.
insane and sick. Or and then on the flip side of that, any fights where you were like, I was so excited for it, but it just
Undersold.
completely just blew up in your face, and you're just like, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. And I already know that for us, at least for maybe for me, Rose versus Esparza 2 was one that I was, because we met Rose through just, being in the Denver scene, and we're watching this like, oh yeah, here we go. She's gonna get, wow, that was 25 minutes of stuff.
Not much.
That was something. But so again, back to you though. Favorite fight as a journalist, favorite fight as a fan, and then fight that just didn't tickle your pickle as much.
Yeah, I think the one, I mean, I think in MMA history, if you're talking about historic fights, being at Zhang Wei Li and Joanna was a big one. It's talked about probably still is the greatest women's fight of all time. And that was the first time that I had gotten on a plane for Junkie, that they had brought me to an event. I had gotten one in here in Boston, but I was kind of more working from home. At that time, we had John Morgan and Mike Bond, who still works for us. So they were a little bit more on the travel beat. So getting to go out to Las Vegas was a big deal, and do the whole cage side thing with the computers. And so that was one that, I don't know if you guys can hear that motorcycle, but that was one that will always stick out to me in my head, and being on press row. And I remember, when the fighters come by and they do, sometimes they'll the winners will signal to the media, and everybody's got their phones out. I remember Joanna seeing that like face so deformed and that like weird head shape where she looked like an alien. I almost actually, when she kind of turned, I was like, the photo I ended up taking was like shaky, because I was like, oh my God, her head's like falling off. But that was definitely the coolest one. And honestly, probably on that same card, which was the last pay-per-view the UFC held before the pandemic, was Yoel and Izzy. And that was a dud. Going into that fight, I think a lot of people were super excited for that. And they were like, oh, it's a fun kind of co-main event. And then leaving, it was like the total opposite. So that was one that certainly sticks out in my brain as just being a big letdown, when Yoel wasn't throwing really, and Izzy was kind of just doing his
I always
thing.
like the
So
little
that was a
video
bummer.
that people put. They're like, when you're learning a new game, you're trying to figure out the controllers. It's like Yoel and Izzy, and they're just like,
Yeah.
and just
they're not doing much, but you're like, come on, man, do something.
Yeah, getting that exciting fight first, and then having the other one second was quite the fall off of, like, that feel when you're building up to something great on a card, a big UFC pay per view, and then just you went to the
Sucks
highest of
the
highs and the
energy out
lowest
of
of
the
lows
room
back
for
to
sure.
back.
I would feel like, I'm like,
Yeah, it was not great. It was not great. And then I ended up getting my flight delayed the next day, and I don't know. It was. You asked me about crazy things earlier. Honestly, probably covering the sport during the pandemic was pretty nuts. Like going to an event for Bellator and having it not happen, and feeling like you're in the zombie apocalypse. That was another thing in my career that I think was. I know
oh,
we
for
all
sure.
experienced it different ways, but that was pretty wacky.
That was
Going to
such
an
a
event having
weird
to get
time in
canceled.
the world. And like, we were supposed to fight for LFA, and man, they're like, no, we're gonna have it. We're gonna have it. And I'm like, dude, we're a couple weeks out and things are getting shut down. And then they canceled it. I want to say it was like maybe 2 months later. They ended up, it was in South Dakota at the Sanford Pentagon, and they had it, no fans, which that was very interesting.
That was
But
crazy, dude.
the people in the town were living their life like it was normal, which was awesome to see. But I think I saw maybe like, I think I remember seeing like two people with masks, and one was super elderly guy being pushed around in a wheelchair. And then one was this older lady that was working at a restaurant. But I mean, shoot, they were like, oh yeah, we saw the fights are coming. It just sucks that nobody can go. It's like, what? Nobody cares if you can't go,
Mhm.
for like Sioux Falls, right?
Yeah, Sioux Falls.
So they're like, it's cool to have big events come here, but what's the point whenever we can't go anyways? It's like, what? So yeah,
Dude, and that was so crazy because they told him that they were like, "Hey, you got to act like the pandemic's still going on. I know South Dakota kind of plays to the beat of their own drum, but you go back to the hotel." Like they were super strict. And meanwhile, for us, if you went up to the Wyoming border, same thing. They didn't believe in the pandemic, and there was this little bar called the Outlaw, and they the promotion that I recently fought for, Justin fought for a lot coming up, Sparta Combat League, Sparta Sports and Entertainment. Now they were hosting shows out of this saloon, and we're just looking around like there's a ton of people here, and they're like, our ID and like to get in. It was like, and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm putting my mask on. It's like, you're from Colorado, huh? I was like,
you're one of
yeah. It
those.
was like, put it away. I was like, I don't know. So it was weird, man, especially for this guy because his LFA card, he was supposed to fight Steve Garcia, who's on a pretty hell of a tear right now in the UFC, and thinking, man, what could have been fighting against Garcia, and then
He gets called up, I believe.
he gets called up and he loses to Luis Pena, which Luis Pena, he's got a
very interesting story.
Yeah, that's a crazy little nugget there, and then you're supposed to fight
Villarino.
He had a good knockout on the Contender Series and fought for LFA. And then boom, pandemic happens. And you're just like, what do we do now? And then you're fighting in an empty arena. And the Pentagon is small for like an MMA, like if you're going to say like LFA stuff, but then to have no one there, it was just kind of a trip. So yeah, I can only imagine what it was like for you guys, where it's like you're just sitting at home like, I hope something happens so I can write about it. And
Well, what was crazy was during the pandemic, we probably had more interest in the sport than we've had. It was like the start of a humongously busy period, and part of it I think was because people didn't have anything else to do, so like everybody's sitting at home on their phones. So there's all these people who wanted to read us, and then B, like all those cancellations, all the moves, all the Fight Island thing. What's Bellator doing? The Fight Sphere, like, and at the same time, advertisers weren't advertising at Junkie and at USA Today. So we were on furloughs where we had to rotate essentially, like every few weeks you would have a week where you didn't get paid and you couldn't work. You like literally, like they'd freak out. Like I think it was like illegal for us to work or something. They were super strict about, you can't message anybody from work. Like if they found out you were doing it, like you'd have to start all over again, like all this sort of stuff. So it was a really weird time in the space of trying to like have a short staff, manage all these things. Then they start telling us, hey, the UFC start going to hold events. Like we're going to send John Morgan there. And then it was like, hey, Nolan, we know you haven't done camera stuff for us, but like they're at Mohegan Sun. So I drove 20 weeks during the pandemic to Mohegan, did the quarantine thing for 24 hours, did the interviews, did the weigh-ins, did the fights, drove home, had my 2 off days, and then did the whole thing over again. So man, I know so many of us have experienced it that are around right now. It's not ancient history, but again, like 50 years from now, when we tell people about this, they're going to, kids are going to be like, what the hell? It's so bizarre. Real. Yeah. So
I'm like,
it's something I'll never forget,
You youngsters, we lived it.
Well, and man, Mohegan's fun though, dude. Like we were only there for one fight, but it was cool when we went because it was at the time where they said, hey, if you have your vaccination, you can go do what you want. So I even told Just, because at the time we're like, I don't know, man, we don't know what's in it. And I said, we can move around freely if we get it. And it was like, sign me up. that was it.
Yeah, who? Which
That was
fight was
I
that
think
for you,
debut.
that was
Justin?
my debut for Bellator with the versus Taiwan Claxton.
So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's it was interesting because like when I first got there too, there was a few things. One, first time I ever saw like a self nose swab, and I remember being like, "Oh, like Bellator's just cutting their budget. They're having like this weird thing where we do it ourselves." But then it ended up being that they were kind of ahead of the curve. And then for a while there, it was like, "Yeah, you can. You need to stay in the casino, and you can only get takeout from the places, or you can eat outside at like the patio, but you can't eat inside." I just remember like cutting through the casino still
Yeah.
to get to the hotel, right? And there's all the people they told should stay home, oxygen tanks, old people, those were people all with the only health, people that were there.
they were having the time of their lives.
They were the only people that were there. It's like the worst, the most susceptible class or whatever. So
Weird.
again,
Yeah.
just so many little weird details that you
Life
remember
was
about something
very
like that.
strange then. What was I gonna say about Mohegan's son? When they were doing our tests, like I think they were still experimenting. They didn't know how far you had to go in, and like being a fighter in this game, I've probably broke my nose a couple times. Never like doctor declared, but have deviated septum. So like one side they're sticking up there kind of easy, the other one they're like, "Ugh." I'm like, dude, hold on, bro, take it easy.
Yeah, John Morgan had freaked out our whole staff because when he first went to Abu Dhabi, they had like the ones where the people would do it with the long stick themselves and they'd have you lean your head back. I remember him telling me, he's like, "Bro, if you go there, it's the worst thing." Like, he's like, "I don't even care about getting my blood drawn or anything, but that was awful." So I was like, going into it, I was like, "Oh man, like I'm really not, I don't know like how it can be that bad, but I've also never had anything
It's
stuck up
up
my
there,
nose
man.
that far before." But then, yeah, we got there. It wasn't bad.
Gosh.
Nolan, here's another question, man. So you've been doing this for a long time, and obviously you're very good at it. But I'm just curious, like, you ever have any interest on jumping? I mean, jumping ship and going into any other sports?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right? So you'd have to have like obviously I think you'd have to have a fair amount of knowledge about the sport. We just saw it in ESPN had Mark Ramondi, who was a longtime reporter. He just jumped from MMA last year to he's the Atlanta Falcons beat reporter now. So it's possible, right? It's something that there is, I think my experience in this sport and reporting here and the different things that I've done would be very impressive. Could be impressive in a resume to covering another sport, but there's certain things that I think I would very much lose if I were to make that jump. And I have so much useful and useless MMA knowledge that I can pull from fights that I've seen, who fought who, all sorts of title fights, regional fights, gyms, all sorts of stuff that's I think gives me an advantage over people in this field, whereas I might not have if I were to go cover hockey, like, all the different colleges that all these guys or junior teams that they played for and who their teammates were. Like, I would have
You
to
can learn.
go
Oh, for
essentially
sure.
like learn backwards, right? It would be tough. So I think that and just the relationship part of it too. Like, I have so many strong relationships in MMA. If something happens and we need to get in touch with somebody about whatever, I can pretty much find them. Whereas I think there it'd be like, do I start trying to establish connections with agents or teams or how does that work, right? So I think it would be very tough. It's possible. It would be a big learning curve, and maybe there'd be some opportunities like an ESPN or something, right? Like, I think when you work for a big outlet like that, you know, you get all the access that you want. So you can they're happy with your role of covering the team and going to the practices, whatever. Something like this, where it's a lot more self motivated and you have to create content yourself, I think would be very difficult for me to do in another sport without having the knowledge, having
I
those
mean, no
connections.
doubt. And that's something kind of different. I mean, I guess I've never been a pro football player, pro like soccer player, baseball, whatever. I've always just been a pro fighter. So it's like, and when you make connections with people, man, they're honestly really close connections. Like you're kind of buddies. They give you the inside scoop. You kind of bullshit with them. I feel like this world is a very tight knit world, and we take care of each other for the most part. It'd be kind of hard to jump ship and jump into something else where it's like starting all over, man. I would assume.
Yeah, especially too. Like, I think there's been. I used to look at like John Morgan or Ramondi or Helwani as like you know, oh, they've been here, they kind of know everybody a little bit more. But I think like now, since the pandemic happened, we keep going back to that, but like the fan base exploded during that. I think there's way more people trying to get into the media, trying to do social media, try to deal with the athletes, try to do YouTube, right? You've got all sorts of different avenues that you can cover the sport in just by creating an account online. It's a great tool. It's awesome. But I also think having been there kind of before that era a little bit, you know, years worth of experience dealing with certain people in this game, you just automatically build, you know, there's respect built and trust and things like that. So I'd be starting over that clock, you know, all over again if I jumped to NFL or NHL or NBA if there was an opportunity. Like I love this. I love MMA. That's the other thing.
For sure. And
Yeah,
you have a passion for it, which is probably why you're doing so well, you know?
It gives you, I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way with fighting, right? Like it gives you kind of an advantage over the
Yeah,
people that don't like it
absolutely,
when you
you
love
know?
something.
If I had to go fight somebody out on the streets, I'd probably have a very higher chance of beating them up, you know? How old are you, brother? Okay,
I just turned
you're
30,
just so
so
young,
we're
and hey,
entering a
man, you got a lot
new
of time.
decade
So
here. Yeah.
just a random question. I was curious of like, man, you've been doing this for years, so it's like,
Well, because you started doing it when you were in college, like you were just kind of like,
you were like 19, 20 when you first started.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think I created the account I believe in like 2014, so I must have been 19 when I created my Twitter account. And then I got hired at Junk when I was 24 or something. I just turned 24
Very
when I got hired at Junkie. So on the younger side, I think I'm still the youngest person on staff. But there's some young up and comers that I'm sure are hungry to you know, to take your spot. So you got to stay on top
Oh,
of your
hey,
game. You can't get
trust me,
weathered.
we get it, we get
Mhm.
it.
he's worried about me just here, dude. I'm like, hey, I'm coming for you, Just. I'm right. You know, he's got a little brother. It's like, hey, if you slip around, mom and dad are gonna pick a new favorite. You know, so oh my god. Well, so no, now kind of want to talk about what's going on with MMA nowadays because you know every now and then when Justin and I get on and do a show, we shoot the shit about what's going on, what's going to happen, and what we kind of see happening for the future. So recapping at least a little bit about the most recent fights. Obviously, Usman had a huge return. He was the betting underdog and pretty much did what Usman does. Did you see that going the same way that it went, or were you kind of leaning on the Buckley train?
Yeah, I can't lie, man. I was leaning on the Buckley train. You know, I think for me, you know, seeing somebody lose 3 times in a row like Usman did, where he was, you know, the first fight he was winning, but then clearly the second fight Leon showed that he was better, at least, you know, that night. And then the Khamzat thing, I didn't really weigh too much in
Yeah,
because it was short notice, up a weight class. But I just thought like, you know, 9 times out of 10 when a guy's you know, nearing 40 and he's been gone for a couple of years and he's starting to be on that decline, like very seldom do you see them come back and look
yeah,
like better, right?
and he
And I
looked
think he
good.
did look better, and it might have been circumstance. It might have been, you know, not have healing up some little injuries or something, but he looked great, man, and good for him. I mean, he's been a great representative of the sport. Superman meant a lot to him, obviously, and I think just from the outside, it meant a lot for his career. If he had lost another one, it would have been he would have been written off by everybody. So he's right back there. You know, he's right back there. He's got that name recognition, and now he showed that he still has the
Huge
abilities
win
too.
for him. Just like, I mean, hey, he is, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. He's getting older. He's coming on a couple fight skid, but being the pound for pound, arguably the GOAT, you know, for over a decade and doing, I mean, some nasty knockouts against some high level guys. I mean, shoot, man, can you ever count that guy out for sure? I mean, especially coming back against a Joaquin Buckley who's had some nasty knockouts, young, up and coming in the game. I mean, dude, that dude's a stud, bro. So it was a huge win for Usman.
Yeah, and he made him look
Yeah,
lost, kind of
yeah.
too. You know,
So,
he made him look lost.
When you brought
Yeah.
up the Hamzat thing, it's kind of crazy because uh, I've coached wrestling for 10 years, and over the past how long was Ben there? Like 2-3 years? I think 3. So
yeah, ish.
so yeah, our head coach or co-head coach is Usman and Gaethje and Archie Colgan's wrestling coach. So Ben Charrington. And so it was like I would always be like, is he going to take this fight? Is he going to, like, I tried to get the nitpick from him, and it was crazy because he was talking about it, that Hamzat fight, like that he was going to take it. And he was like, well, I was going to get surgery on my knees, but dang, they're paying Saudi money. Like I kind of have to take this. And so it was nuts to hear from Ben that he's like, yeah, he's going to take it. And then he's going to fly us out to wherever the heck they stayed. I can't remember where they were at, but in a lot of that was covered by just the management team. And he's like, I never would imagine to see this kind of stuff. But then to go into that fight and think, would Usman have gotten the dub if it was 5 rounds?
I mean, he was gaining on him, man. I mean, I'd like to see him run it back, maybe let Khamzat fight for the belt and then give Usman a little bit of time to really train, and just prepare for him the right way.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. And then obviously we had the most recent title fights, Merab O'Malley and Harrison becoming the champ now. So was Harrison just like the foregone conclusion where it's like she gets in the cage, she's gonna get it? Is that kind of the way that you saw it? That's the way we saw it, was just she's so strong. And the fact that she make that cut to 35s is bananas.
Respect to her.
Yeah, I mean, I was down in Newark for that card, and I think I try not to play like psychologists, but I think there is when you see an athlete who everybody's anticipating is going to have a brutal weight cut, and her to get up there on media day and just be like, fine, and she's huge, like she's just talking like she always does, and she's cool and she's joking and she's in a good mood. Like there is something to be read into that. So when I saw that she was looking like that a few days before the fight, I kind of had a feeling she wasn't going to miss weight, just the level of athlete that she is and professional. But when I saw that, I was like, unless the weight cut, she just shuts down her organs totally. Like, there's no way she's losing this, And so for her to go out there, just great performance. I think kind of what everybody was expecting, but it doesn't take away from the fact that she's just on the next level compared to at least everybody in that division except one person.
I mean, it's pretty exciting. I think everybody wants to see what's next of like Kayla Harrison versus the Lioness, right? I mean, it opens up a great fight. I mean, it's cool to see
because there's no one else that everyone wants to see that fight. You're not going to be able to argue like, well, what about Raquel Pennington, or what about it's got to be Amanda. That was the whole goal from even bringing Kayla into the promotion the whole time. So
yeah, I agree. That was the thought.
Oh yeah, it's I mean biggest women's fight I think since Cyborg versus Nunes. It's got a lot of different angles that have built this interest, right? Like we thought Amanda was done, and now here she is. It was a fight we didn't know if we'd ever get to see. Style wise, it's interesting. They've trained together, which is interesting. Which I think and maybe Justin can talk about this a little more. I'm more thinking like the coaches. Like Mike Brown has worked with Amanda most of her career. Like it's one thing if her and Kayla went and trained in the gym, and Kayla was like, oh, I know she's not great at this, but like Mike knows what the weaknesses were that they had to work on and the things they had to avoid. And now he's planting all those seeds in Kayla's brain after years of working with Amanda. So that's kind of that's a big thing that sticks out to me.
I mean, man, that's I forgot that. I mean, I knew they trained together, and I forgot that. Like, I mean, after a couple of years off, who does the coach choose, man? I mean, I'd hate to say that he would work with both, but I mean,
no. So Amanda's working the last couple of camps she did somewhere else, kind of on her own road. So Mike's fully in Kayla's corner. Like he is her coach. It's been a couple of
years now. She's been retired, chilling, being a mom. I mean, I'd hope she could come back and be the same, but I mean, dude, life changes. A couple of years is a long time in this game, so I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like it's not the only first time we've seen this kind of happen. Where the biggest example was John Jones and Rashad Evans with Jackson Wink. They're like, hey, we're gonna keep Jones in the corner. Rashad, you go find somewhere else to train. Kamaru and Gilbert Burns. That's the whole reason why
with Whitman and Gaethje and those guys.
Yeah, and then another one that I think's close to home is like Cowboy Cerrone and Mike Perry. It's the same stuff where these camps kind of had to pick and choose who they think is the best. And I mean, now you said it, Amanda's already been out for a while, so they didn't have to really worry about that pick. But a lot of people thought that Sugar Sean O'Malley definitely didn't deserve a title shot because he didn't fight in that 9-month span since he lost the title at the Sphere. It was just a headline for the sake of being a headline. Where do you think he goes from here, and who do you think goes against Merab next? Because locally for us, and also being a training partner of Justin's, we're going to be biased. We're going to say that Corey Sandhagen should probably fight for the title next. He's been knocking on that door for a while, but also it's hard to say that, Peter Yan's booked for a fight, so he probably shouldn't fight next. But then again, he's fighting soon, so it's kind of, I think it's either Yan or Sandhagen, but I'm leaning on Sandhagen. So 2-part question.
Yeah, I think that's so. First of all, I think sorry to cut you off. Were you just curious about the fight, the O'Malley one? Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with you. Like it was a fight that didn't really need to happen right now. Like I would have liked to see Sean go back and have the opportunity to build. I just think if you looked at that division, right, who would he struggle with the most? Like Umar is kind of similar, but Merab beat him. So I think Merab was like the toughest fight he could take. There's always going to be a risk. That division's nasty. I wouldn't have gone. I would have, if I was the UFC, hedged my bets, had him fight somebody else, and had Merab continue on doing his thing, either against Sandhagen or Jan, depending on who was around at that time. Merab, man, like
Yeah.
I'm not one to speak in hyperbole in the moment and just, whoever's champ's the best and they're going to not lose their belt. Like, I think he is showing signs that he will be the greatest bantamweight ever. Like, he has leveled up at times where you'd think he would plateau. Like, how is this guy getting better? How is he getting better as a champion? And his cardio is ridiculous. His skill set's super challenging for that division. He beat a guy in Umar that was probably the worst test, like most challenging test that he could face. And now I think he's got Corey. I mean, I think the UFC's on board with that. They seem to love Corey. I know a lot of the fighters in that division view him as a very stylistically tricky matchup for, just in general, like, who's out there that, we could fight. I kind of don't want Sandhagen because he's kind of got the cruise thing going on where he's tricky. I think it's pretty much a no-brainer at this point. It should be Corey. And they showed him too. Like they showed him on the broadcast. Merab mentioned him. He was there as a guest fighter. Like I think they already know that he's going to be the guy that's next.
Yeah. And that it makes the most sense, but you never know. The UFC has pulled some crazy stuff in the bantamweight division just based off what kind of star. I mean, I was always one that I thought the best fight that wasn't a title fight in that division would have been O'Malley versus Sandhagen because they're huge for the weight classes, amazing strikers. Knowing Corey, he probably would have done the logical thing and just been like, dude, my jiu-jitsu is way better than yours and take him down. But that I was like even kind of like rooting for Sean to win that fight just so Corey could fight him
for the belt.
Yeah, that would have been
also a cool story, but I don't know. Merab being the bantamweight goat's kind of cool too.
Dude, he's just getting better. Like, yeah, submitting Sean was insane. He has that like nonstop offense that you're just like, you can't even get mad because people think like, oh, casual fans will say he's smelling his nuts. He's a nut sniffer. He's trying to just take him down. It's like, dude, he's like taking him down at will. And it's fun to watch because he's just going. And he's super funny online too.
Yeah. And he's going for the finish too. It's I don't want to say he's risking anything because nobody seems to be able to deal with him down there. There's not much risk to take, but yeah, he's like almost in that Khabib category of like, sure, he's kind of a guy that takes you down, holds you and beats you up, but like it's kind of crazy to watch just how much he can dominate you when he's down there,
And then, big fights coming up this weekend, both in PFL and the UFC. We'll talk about the UFC first. Khalil Roundtree, he's making his return, not taking a step backwards, going against Jamal Hill. And Jamal, he's on a bit of a skid. I mean, it's 2 now, so you can call it a skid, but I feel like this is Striker's delight here. How do you see it going, Nolan? Do you think one of these guys needs a bounce back and you just got 2 heavy-handed dudes that are wanting to, get a whiff at Magomed? What's going to happen?
Yeah, maybe I'm putting too much weight into Khalil's fight against Pereira, and just how surprisingly competitive he was in that fight, and even winning the bout in certain rounds. So maybe I'm just too much on the "what have you done for me lately" train, but I am leaning with him, man. I think he's really evolved in kind of a later stage than we usually see development. So I'm leaning with him. I think Jamal still poses some threats, right? He's super long. He's wild. He can get you in a kind of a gunslinging contest and knock you out. So I am leaning with Khalil, but it's a very interesting fight, and I love this card from top to bottom. So I'm excited to not have to stay up till like 3 a.m. too. Day card. I know it's in a different country, a debut over there in Azerbaijan, but I'll certainly take it. But I do think Khalil gets it done, probably inside the distance, but especially where these guys have 5 rounds.
Off topic, but isn't it weird that they're going to Azerbaijan of like all places? Like it's money. I get that, but it's just like what is out like because isn't like Fazeev the only fighter who's like from there?
Yeah, they have him, and they have Tafik Masayev, who was in Bellator, who had been in Ryzen, who they just signed him. He's a free agent. They brought him for this event. And then there's Nazim Sadikov, who's from here. I believe he was born in America, but his parents were from Azerbaijan. So those are kind of the two guys that were born there. I'm pretty sure Nazim was born here. I might be wrong. You might have to double check me on that, but those are kind of the reps that are on this card.
You see, he knows his stuff, dude. See, I'm out here looking really ignorant. Like this is stupid. It's like there's like 6 guys from the area on this card, man. So, but we like Khalil too. I think there's the one fight that we joked about it on the podcast last time he fought him, but it was just when he knocked out Anthony Smith, and he's just sitting there like
Just walking, you
want one?
hand higher and higher. Like, don't make me do this. Don't make me.
Because who does that? Where it's just like, I'm gonna give it to you. You better stop it. Like he wasn't even like threatening Anthony Smith. He was telling the ref, I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, man. He's got some I don't know, just had a weird career, right? Like from losing the title to in a celebrity basketball game, to the Alex Pereira thing where he waved the ref off or whatever, or Pereira waved the ref off and then he got knocked out. So yeah, he's a funny kind of, and I don't mean this in a bad way. He's a little bit goofy. Like I think almost his personality too. He's a little kind of joking around a lot. So fun fighter to watch. So man, I mean, regardless if you looked at the product that was on Contender Series and look at the one you have now, like a guy that really grew up when he was on the highest stage too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure. This guy, I mean, man, he's fought some of the best, and I mean, dude, he's been around for a long time. So it's like, I mean, he's done it, man. I don't even know. I don't know how old he is. I think he's like 36, right?
Yeah, he's in his mid 30s. He's not that much older than you, I don't think, but
I thought you guys were talking about Khalil because Khalil's in the music industry, and then we were talking about Jamal Hill. So I was like, some of the sickest tats in the game.
oh, what's up with this tattoo too? Like just the thumbs up right there. And he's got enough money, he could totally get them removed because they're not the best ones, but he's all about these thumbs, right?
That's why I stay out of the tattoo game. I don't have enough faith that. I know Justin's got some good ink, but
You want this right here. That like normally, hey, I love my family, but this is a big there was a Facebook post that said, hey, if anyone's got this tattooed on them, I just want to know if you're doing okay. Because this is like
That was a sick logo like 15 years ago.
yeah, like it's a time. My tattoos aren't even like sentimental. It's just a time capsule of old fads. And I went to Facebook and I was like, I'm all right. I'm doing okay. But so I mean, who am I to talk trash about bad tattoos? I mean,
no, I think that gives you permission, right? Isn't that how that works?
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it could be worse. I could have like a baby mama's name on me or something like that, and I could like cross it off or something. But hey,
You have that one on your back, right?
oh, it just says Melissa, and I'm just like, oh well, no, like you're gonna get it covered up. No, man, just black
Just get
it
it,
out.
just get it across through it,
just
and then you're on to the next one.
Circle with the line through it.
Oh man, so but you're in the Northeast New England upper area. So how does that play an effect on you as a fan? Because us being in Colorado, like it's not bad to watch the fights. We usually, I mean, main event's probably done what 11 o'clock, give or
Ish,
take.
yeah.
But you guys, it's like 2, 3 in the morning. You're like, oh God, I got to stay up all the way.
Yeah, it's brutal, and it's gotten way worse too. You know, it used to be. I don't like to bitch about my job, but sometimes when you're staying up every Saturday till 2 a.m., or like, the fights will end at 2 a.m., which is late. I think a lot of East Coast fans are like, oh, that kind of sucks. But then when you have to do like, either being on the ground, if it's an East Coast show, I remember being at Mohegan, or excuse me, at Madison Square Garden, till 4:30 a.m. in that media room, getting on 5 o'clock. Driving to the airport for whatever 6 something flight, getting on. So it is gotten worse too with all the media broadcast partners, and they're having an Africa broadcast, all sorts of stuff like that. So it is the worst time zone. Being over in California for an event, and you're like, wait, there's still like the bars are still open, and like it's only whatever friggin' depending on what kind of card you're at, it's only midnight or 11 p.m. or something. Like there's nothing good about this
No,
time
and
zone, man.
it's rough, dude. That's like I like Colorado, mountain time, just because fights for us start at 8 o'clock, and like that's a good time to like, all right, day's over, sit down. Well, the main card starts, I guess, and 5 fights. We're in bed at a reasonable time, but dude, for you, it's your job. You're just like, oh my god, and then like I follow those MMA on point guys, and they're in the UK, so they're staying up like ridiculous. Like they're starting the main card at like 3 in the morning, and they're just like, okay, can't wait for this. This is or the prelims or something. I'm like, dude, that's dedication to be a fan in Europe. That you're just like,
Yeah.
nope, I gotta be up at this time to. It was weird because when Zhang Weili fought for the title her first time. Like I remember I was sleeping. And I was like, "Wait, there's fights on." It was 6 a.m. and I went, "Oh shit, let's watch these fights now." And so, but that's how they probably feel, in the other hemisphere. So
Yeah, I can't, like, especially too when they go over to these other countries and they put on the events there that are on our time. Like I can't, just pulling an all nighter with your boys going to watch the fights, and the first one's at whatever fucking 6 a.m. or 4 a.m. or whatever time it happens over there. It's crazy level dedication, and those fans over there are so passionate too. So yeah, it's nuts, man. It's a different viewing experience for fight fans compared to everybody else.
well, and man, and the Canelo Alvarez normally he always fights around Cinco de Mayo, and he fought this time with Riyadh season, and it was out there. I'm like, man, do these guys even like care about these people that are fighting? And knowing that I've seen Canelo Alvarez sell out, Cowboy Stadium, and people will go out of their way to watch this guy fight. It's like it's weird to see them fight out there, but like you said earlier, it's the money. So now, before we hop off, I think PFL fights, because I feel like they're going through some tough times. Business wise, obviously went from $1 million tournament to $500,000 tournament. Uh, our boy Archie Colgan, he was supposed to fight in Paris. Card gets canceled. He's actually kind of happy about it because he's like, I was supposed to fight in Paris, and taxes out there are so much different. Now I'm fighting in Wichita, Kansas, which is the closest I fought to Denver in like 5 years. So for him, he's like, I don't mind it at all. But there's what's the big picture that you see with the PFL right now? Because it's really hard, and it's really hard for them to make the landscape big. Like I don't even know if they're the number 2 promotion anymore. Like when they got Bellator and they bought them, a lot of people like they're number 2. They got the bigger stars, but losing so many names. I mean, Musasi being upset with how things are going, Bader kind of bowing out and saying, I'm done. Pico, Patchy, so many names, Pitbull going to the UFC. Now, Tofik, like you said, is PFL the number 2 promotion, or do you think these promotions like KSW in Poland or even Octagon doing big things out in, I think it's Germany, I might be wrong, but there's some heavy hitters that nobody really talks about, and I have a hard time saying one championship is in the running because they don't put on just solely MMA fights. It's MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, randomly throwing jiu-jitsu out there. So in your eyes, who is the number 2 promotion right now behind the UFC?
Yeah, I think it's still PFL, but it's certainly the landscape has changed where the gap between 1 and 2 is a lot bigger, and the gap between 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6 is a lot smaller. You look at if I were to kind of go maybe in order in my brain, the UFC is number 1, PFL is number 2. I think Ryzen does a really mean job. They have that market so well. It's so well done. They have those massive events. They've got good talent. So them, Octagon, which is really raising the bar, and then KSW is probably like the next tier. And I mean, one's good, but there's a couple issues, right? They do the mixed events, which I like all those sports. I have a lot of respect for boxing, for kickboxing, for Muay Thai, for all this stuff. But I think sometimes when you mix it in, it's a little hard for everybody to digest, even somebody who can sit down and watch any of sort of event like myself. So that's kind of a problem. And they seem to, on the MMA side, not be I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. There seems to be a lot of inactivity going on compared to, say, a year to 2 years ago for some of these fighters that have come to me and said, hey, our contract's not even being honored, and blah blah blah. So we saw with the Ritter, right? He just kind of like left them. Like they were still saying, oh, he's under contract and he fought for UAE Warriors, and then he's in the UFC, and like I haven't heard about any lawsuits. So I'm assuming that something happened where they either had to let him go or he just left and they never called him out on it. So that's not good, man. But the landscape is definitely, not what it should be. And I think PFL's direction right now is very difficult as somebody that roots for everybody in this industry to kind of figure out.
Well, because competition's good. And I mean, this is me talking about it as like a pro wrestling fan, where if you got an AEW, a TNA, and a New Japan, Justin's looking at me like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about, nerd.
Man,
But
I know AEW.
so it's the more promotions out there, the better it is, because you're giving the fighters options and variety. So, I mean, it's interesting to see where things go with it, but yeah, I mean, you'd have to think with PFL's like landscape being on ESPN and like having some good top ex UFC card guys on there, still some of the tough guys from Bellator, they are still carrying a good banner, at least in terms of like proper recognition. And then they started PFL Africa. They still have the MENA tournament, PFL Europe. It's cool to see those smaller shows within the big organization.
Mhm.
And so
It's giving some other places a chance that don't really have a following in MMA. Like, I mean, is MMA big in Africa? I don't think so. But I think it's making for this like world tournament that they're doing. You're gonna pull from everywhere. I mean, kind of like, I mean, obviously the UFC is doing that too, but like they have a mini tournament. You win the tournament, maybe you get into the big tournament. Question I had, Nolan, maybe you might have some insight on this. Any word on the GFL? They came with some pretty big claims that they were going to be the next big thing, and then nothing.
I don't think we'll ever get a word from them again. Yeah,
you mean the Grandpa Fight League?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, man, it was one of those weird things, I think, for people in the industry, because I think a lot of people knew what was going on. Like the contracts that these fighters were getting were way above for everybody, way above the market value of, like, say, even if the old Bellator had existed. Like they were not like crazy numbers, and the contracts were not very restrictive. It was like, if you sign this now, like you can still dip out before we even start our first event if you want. So I think a lot of fighters and managers and whatnot thought that there was no real risk to signing it. Like, hey, best case scenario, we actually get some money out of this or whatever. Obviously, there were some that, like Holly Holm left the UFC. Was this part of it because she knew this other option existed? There was a lot of money. Maybe. I think that probably happened to some of the PFL guys. I know it did, in fact.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So
there's a couple that I know that really big contracts, and man, now they're just on hold. I'm curious if, like, I don't know if there's any way they could like try to sue for this. I think I saw Kevin Lee put something of that. I can't remember exactly, so I'm paraphrasing here, but he was like, they changed my career and they promised me all this money and they used my name, my NIL, I guess, to promote their business and make money off of me, is what his stance is on it.
yeah, I mean, there's certainly, like, I think there's grounds for, again, I'm not like a lawyer, but I think we're going to see fighters explore this quite a bit because, I mean, at every turn they seemingly were misled. And ultimately, again, Darren Owen responded to my inquiry the night that they canceled the events, and then we never heard from him again. So that was it.
Not a good
Yeah,
sign.
it's a bummer. Yeah.
Well, it was just weird because it was just a bunch of, and I'm not going, this is in no way disrespectful. It is just matter of fact. So many fighters that were just clearly over the hump trying to get one more big payday. Like the average age of the people that signed on to do the GFL, I think they said like the average age of the fighters drafted was like 36.
Really?
Which is like, dude, it was nuts. And I don't blame them. You know, everyone's trying to get some of that Jake Paul boxing money. Is like, hey, I'll get punched in the face by this, former Disney Channel star for a
Yeah,
for
and
a
that was
cool
that
meal.
was I mean, that was one of the biggest red flags for me too, was like, I'm all about fighters getting paid. I think some of these promotions that are UFC competitors, if you want to call them that, like that's what they need to do, right? They need to up the appeal. But seeing some of the contracts, even for some of the divisions that GFL had to fill, like with people that maybe weren't very well known, just like prospects and things, offering them 10 times what they would make in Invicta or in LFA, to me was just, again, like, that doesn't seem like very good money management, right? Like if you offered them half of that, it would have been a lot. And I'm not saying fighters should get paid less or anything, but it just seemed like you were throwing around a lot of money at assets that weren't necessarily worth half of or a quarter of that on the market, you know?
For
So
sure.
I wish it had worked out. I rooted for them. It would have been great for the industry, for fighters to have more opportunities to make money. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever see an event from them.
Some of the people that I know, they said that they're still working on it, and there's some positive. How do I want to say it? Just like movements being in place, maybe some new investors and some other things going on that they are trying to make it happen. I don't know how reliable that source is, so don't don't hold me to it, But I'm just curious to see what happens,
Who's your source? Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro.
But I mean, it's cool because I mean, man, it was really exciting there for a bit. I think a lot of people were like, okay, yeah, we're on board with this. Like fighters getting paid, insurance, retirement possibility. But like, man, to sit down and really put that all together and think about how much money really goes into this, and I mean, it's you need some big time guys to do it. I don't know, man.
Well, the biggest problem I think that people don't understand is that to go out of their way and try and be a UFC competitor right away it's going to dump millions of dollars into it. There's no, like, the UFC started doing shows at McNichols and there was what was the grand prize? 50K?
I think it was 50K, like very
Yeah.
they were first going,
Yeah. Now
which
it's
back then was still a lot of money.
and
Right
then
now it's still decent money.
and then going through the dark ages of doing shows in Dothan, Alabama, it's like there's no, unless you just have this bottomless pit like the Saudis do, that they were teasing that they were going to do a GFL. Unless you just have this bottomless pit of money to completely just say we're going to compete with the UFC, it's still not that easy. So it's hard to think that you can compete with them just straight out the gate. just like, we're going to take all these old stars and we're going to make it work. But it was ambitious. I hope it works out, but I agree with you, Nolan. I don't think it's
as well.
I don't think it's going to happen either, but it was fun while it lasted.
We'll see what happens, you know. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, give them a shot.
I just remember when they did the drafting and they did those like AI models, and I was like, ugh. Like, what? Why does everyone look like Iron Man?
Yeah, that will be, if they never come back, that will be an interesting like random side mission of MMA history, right? You know, that video of them all with the war, like I don't remember if it was like, what was it, like space gear, like warrior gear or something, the AI. Yeah, it was weird, man. It's weird stuff.
Like, you guys didn't have a minute to just like be like, hey, we're gonna get a picture of you. Hey,
Yeah.
like,
And they accidentally put up the draft order at the start of the broadcast.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing. It's
oh
tough.
my gosh. So
Yeah. No, man, I think this was fun. It was good to join you guys. I know it's been a minute. We've talked, Vinny, for a little bit back and forth, and Justin on social media, but it was good to, I don't know if I want to say this face to face, but good to see you guys again. And
Yeah,
congrats on the
absolutely.
podcast. And hopefully we see you back soon. It's been a minute, right?
Yeah. We're in the works. We got some things trying to go through. And shoot, I had to take a little break after my last one for some personal reasons. I don't know if you guys can see it on there. Thanks, Brendan. Jerk. Nah, just kidding. But yeah, so it was like, got the wedding all situated, got the honeymoon planned. We're gonna go here soon. So I mean, I'm making a comeback. I'm training. Me and my manager in talks of fighting here real soon. It just, you know how it goes of
well, he was calling you during the podcast.
Yeah.
Be
So
like,
I was like, I'll give him a call after we're done. And it just, in this game, man, you never know. Like, just like with GFL and some of these other contracts, until I get a contract in hand, it's really hard to announce something, because then you end up looking dumb and it usually falls through. So, you know.
Well, you can't let Vinny's up 1-0 on you this year.
Oh,
so
dude.
You gotta.
Hey, I'm gonna let
Can't
Vinny
let
ride
that
his
happen.
train. You know, he needs his moment.
Thank you.
I mean,
But that was just a trip, dude. Because you ever see those memes where it's like, wow, we got blank before GTA 6? It's like, wow, we had a Vinny Gonzalez MMA return before Justin. That's crazy. Like, what the hell is going on? But I'm gonna milk it for what it is. Once Justin gets a fight, I'm old news. I'm like, well, I got to fight again now, and I got to.
Yeah, and then you get back in there.
that's how we push each other. We just one up each other until.
It don't matter if it's sports, or it'll just be like, hey, I just got approved for like a Visa card. It's like, I got approved for a MasterCard. Like, oh, well, you want to fucking fight then? Yeah. But no, do you have siblings?
I don't. No.
Oh, dude, you're missing out. You just gotta fucking.
I got a lot of
these
friends that
guys
I
up.
would push around growing up. So, but yeah, no, it's cool to see you guys both killing it in the MMA world, and hopefully the Gonzalez's go undefeated in 2025. That's what I'm hoping for.
We're off to a pretty damn good start, I
Vinny
think.
started us off right. I'm working on it. So I think, well, hey, I don't know if Vinny said this earlier, possible another fight coming up here in the near future. So
Shooting for August, just waiting for a name, but it'd be cool. Just want to get down. Like, I fought 85s. The weight cut was easy. Me and this guy
155 next.
I told him, oh god, if I could make a Geisen T-bow cut just to be like, screw it, who cares? But it was weird because I was on weight like Thursday morning, and Justin's like, hey dude, like, eat a little bit, drink some water. I'm like, I'm good. He's like, no, like, you really should eat and drink a little bit. And we did a little shakedown at the gym, and he's like, I'm like, hey, I want to go sit in the sauna. He's like, you shouldn't sit in the sauna. I was like, no, I think I'm going to go sit in the sauna. He's like, you don't need to sit in the sauna. It's like, if I don't get in that sauna, I didn't cut weight. I'm going to go sit in the sauna. And then I was like 2.5 pounds under before weigh-ins, and I was like, oh yeah, this Pedialyte's going to get it.
That's hilarious.
So,
well, congrats, guys.
well,
thanks,
you.
Nolan.
Thank you.
Just want to sign us out, JG?
Well, shoot, guys, that's it for today. Nolan, huge thank you for coming and sparing this time with us, man. You're a good friend of ours. Always love working with you. I guess before we kind of sign out, man, you want to maybe throw these guys. Obviously, your X tag is at MMA_Kings. Instagram, I think it's just Nolan King.
Yep. No. So on Twitter, it's or X now. We have to call it. At MMA_Kings, as you said. Instagram's Nolan King MMA, all one word. And then, yeah, just follow my stuff on MMAJunkie. And I also do a bunch of stuff for Tapology, who I very much love working for as well. So, yeah, those are the places you can find me.
I'm also a big fan. I was following your picks on Tapology, and I think you're a lot more wins than losses, right?
I got to get back onto it. The picks is a big part of Tapology. But I have a pretty good track record there. So you can find me at
Yeah.
Nolan King, I believe, on that. Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry, because I know we got to be logging off, but I just want to pick your brain, Nolan, because you've been with Tapology for a hot minute. Who's asked do I got a kick for the predictions on my last fight, dude?
You got to kick the
8%?
users'
I kicked
butts.
that guy's ass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are, you can create a bunch of, I'm not encouraging this at all, but I was going to say, I was going to joke and say you could create a bunch of
yeah,
burners for
They
your
better
next
not be
one.
your picks, dude. If I find out you picked against me, I'm taking a flight, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But well, shoot, guys, I think that's a wrap today. If you guys want to give Nolan a follow, hit his pages, give him a follow. He's always got a lot of just picks, fight world knowledge, just a lot of things about what's going on in the world. So, man, give him a follow. Huge love to you. Thanks for having you. I think that's it from Blood, Sweat, and Banter, guys. Peace.